Greetings and bienvenue, Midnight Crew. Thank you for returning to this broadcast. And welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
Be me about 4 years ago. I like going on midnight walks as I find it relaxing. I get this weird feeling before I head out, so I grab my knife. Never know what'll happen. I head outside and make my way through my neighborhood. I start to notice it's considerably darker outside than it usually is. I chalk it up to the bad storm the day before. It's still cloudy, and some street lamps are out. The entire time I'm leaving my neighborhood, I can't shake this feeling of being followed. I decide to just turn up my music and keep going on. I make it to a street that's usually busy, but there are hardly any cars. Bored with where I usually head to, I decide to explore my girlfriend at the time's housing addition. At this point, I've completely forgotten about that feeling I got earlier. I'm casually walking downhill and checking out all the cool houses. I get to this cul-de-sac and see this huge old house straight down the center. I head towards the house to get a better look. As I approach, I see the top-story window is completely shattered. Getting a little closer, I can only make out what appears to be a person standing perfectly still, staring down at me. I get this cold shiver down my spine, but try to brush it off as trying to see stuff that isn't there. Against better judgment and every horror movie ever made, I get closer to the abandoned home. I'm getting closer and closer to the front door. I didn't even notice the complete absence of any sound. Bear in mind, I live in a well-populated area, so there's usually some ambient sound. I'm reaching the front door. I can vaguely make out what looks like something crouched in the front room through the window next to the door. Being stupid and polite, I go to knock on the front door. Before my fist can even make contact, I hear the sound of someone walking on breaking glass from the upstairs window. That's when it happens. I try to abort the knocking, but can only slow it down before it lightly taps the door. The next few seconds are the most agonizing moments of my life. I begin to hear shifting and whispering. Trying to make out what's being said, I lean my ear to the door. Then, out of nowhere, without any warning, the most disturbing sound I've ever heard slowly emanates from the other side of the door. I can't even begin to describe what it sounded like, somewhere between a guttural moan and a scream. The creepiest thing about it was that it didn't carry across the neighborhood or echo in the walkway. Snapping from my trance, I turned and ran back down towards the main part of the neighborhood. With each step, I could hear that sound closely following me, but I couldn't make out any footsteps. Halfway down the road, it just stops. Not taking any chances, I continued down till I got to the entrance of the cul-de-sac. Thinking it was finally safe, I turned back to see if I was still being followed. Nothing is down the street, and I can still make out the house, this time at a safe distance. It's by this time that I noticed the lack of any sound. Back then I did a lot of stupid things, so it came as no surprise when I decided to head back towards the house. This time, with a knife in hand, I cautiously walked to the house until I could again make out the person in the second-story window. Feeling brave since I had my knife out this time, I called out to the silhouette to see if it was even real or if I was just overreacting. As I called out, asking if anyone's there and if they're okay, it turned toward me. Getting a similar feeling as before, I tried to shake it and hold my ground. It's at this point that I'm pretty much locked in contact with whatever is in the window. Suddenly I hear walking, coming from the back of the house and bring my gaze to the side of the house. There, on the other side of the fence, is someone clearly taller than the fence itself. Making sure I don't get surprised, I quickly move my gaze to the window again, and nothing. When I say nothing, I should clarify that it was more the absence of any light. It was like staring into a black hole and just watching light disappear into that window. Hearing walking again, I turn my attention to the figure on the other side of the fence. This thing, whatever it was, I could clearly make out despite it being way too dark to make out any features. It was roughly 6 foot, as it was taller than the fence. It looked like your average person, but something was off about it, like uncanny valley type of off. There was just something I couldn't place, but whatever it was making me more and more uneasy as I looked at it. Trying to be as quiet as possible, I tried to get closer to the fence. Unfortunately, just as I had gotten within about 10 feet of the fence, I stepped on a few dead leaves. And wouldn't you know it, it happened to be the loudest sound possible. Frozen in place, the thing on the other side stopped and slowly turned to me. Fear now taking hold of my being. I had hoped staying perfectly still would lessen the chance of it noticing me. Perfectly still just as I was, it cocked its head like a puppy and just stared at me. As you can imagine, I had quite a fearful, panicked look on my face and didn't want to move until I was certain it no longer was paying me any mind. A few seconds passed and it slowly uncocked its head and stared at me, and that's when I noticed it, its face. It no longer looked inquisitive or calm. It wore the same expression I wore, only mine was truly afraid. It began to convulse and change its expression to more closely match mine. As I watched it look more and more like me with each second, I was done. I wanted out of there, and if there was any opportunity for me to get out of there, it was now, while it was doing whatever the hell that was. I inched backwards until I was at a safe distance to run. It stopped moving and looked at me. Thinking I had stopped just in time for it not to notice, it cocked its head one more time. At this point, I couldn't take any more of this and started to run. Before I could turn the other way and run to safety, it began to sprint after me. Thinking I'd have a few seconds for it to climb the fence, I quickly turned around until I heard it scream. Coming to a halt, I made the mistake of looking back to see it walk through the fence, not power through the fence, leaving it in shambles. No. This thing just phased through the fence at full speed. With no more time to spare, I ran. I ran for what felt like ages. I didn't stop until I was at one of the entrances to my neighborhood. Feeling somewhat safe, I decided to stop and catch my breath. I could finally make out my house down the street. Taking one last opportunity to see if I was being followed, I turned back. The only thing I could make out in the darkness was a black shadowy shape crawling towards me on the ground. Needless to say, I ran all the way back to my house and locked all the doors and windows. To this day, I have no idea what it was that I saw or heard. I went back a few weeks later during the day to pick up my girlfriend, and she could see I was shaken about something. I never told her, and only my closest friends know what happened that night.
This happened back when I was in high school. I moved to a new city for my dad's new job. We moved into an older 2-story home. Everything was fine for a couple of weeks. The house seemed pretty normal. One summer night, I was laying in my room and felt this really odd feeling, like something bad was about to happen. I sat there for a while and tried to ignore it and go to sleep. I heard a weird groaning sound. It sounded like screaming almost. It got louder to the point where it started to hurt my ears. It sounded like multiple people screaming frantically. It stopped. Nothing but silence and laying in a pitch-black room. I heard someone coming down the hall, and my mom opened the door to ask if I was playing any music or video games, because the screaming woke her and my dad up. It woke up my little brother, too. I said I didn't and had no idea what it was or where it came from. It sounded like from everywhere, if that makes sense. It freaked us all out, and after a couple of days, my mom asked my neighbors what the history of the house was. It was built in the 50s, but a fire killed a family that was living in it. The house wasn't too damaged and was rebuilt. Here's the fucked up part. About a year afterwards, I fell asleep and was woken up at 3 by a weird-sounding laugh. I looked around in the dark to see what looked like a silhouette of a woman. The image got clearer, and it looked like a woman in charred 1950s clothing. Nope. I saw her face, and it looked burned and skull-like, while the other half was almost fine. She screamed and flew at me. I freaked out and ran from my room. My parents woke up and had heard the scream also. We moved out and into a cheap apartment while we were selling the house. We eventually moved out and have a new place. We sold it to some young couple out of Boston. They've had no issues, apparently.
This happened a few days ago. I live in a rural outback town. I'm about to move out, currently living with my parents. It's 7 p.m. I walk downstairs to talk to my mom about something. I hear the screen front door close, so I assumed she was back from the shops. I hear the back sliding door open. I walk downstairs. The back sliding door is opened about a quarter of the way. I can't find her. I go to the sliding screen door and look out towards the backyard. I think I can see her. I assume she's locking up the chickens because no flashlight is where it's kept. I walk outside without turning on the patio light. I walk to the chicken cage that's a few hundred meters away from the house. I'm following a silhouette, so I still assume it's my mother. Mom walks inside the door of the chicken coop that was already opened. I stand at the door and start talking about whatever it was. I hear grunting. Thinking Mom's hurt, I ask, "Mom, are you okay? Need a hand?" I take a step into the chicken coop as I say it. I hear back, "I'm not your mother." A male voice, kind of accented, which threw me off. My brain takes a moment to function. I sprint past my house straight up to the driveway, which is near a highway. I wait there, back facing the road, staring down my driveway, waiting for the random person to get me. Mom pulls up. "What are you doing, Ash?" I nope out. Mom convinces me to go back inside the house. I lock all the doors. I call the police. They come. They can't find anyone. I had my father check everywhere when he came home. It worries me how I just assumed it was my mother and followed him over to the chicken coop.
B16. I live in the middle of nowhere. I have a cat that likes to go outside sometimes, surrounded by woods, so lots of wild animals. A coyote howls right by my window. I shit my pants because that's a creepy noise to hear at 2 a.m. I hear a cat screeching. I realize my cat, Marvin, is outside. I freak out because of my poor feline. Dumb alpha moment. I decide to save my cat. I race outside in my boxers. I see eyes in the woods. "Oh, here. Kitty, kitty." I walk closer to the eyes. "Come here, baby, it's okay." I hear noise in the trees. I look up. Marvin. But if Marvin's in the tree, what the fuck am I calling and walking towards? Nope.jpg. I feel like an imbecile because I've been walking towards a super pissed off coyote. I walk to the tree because apparently cats matter more than my own personal safety. He jumps down, and I have to try and get him to come over to me because he's terrified. I finally get him and start walking towards the house. The coyote stands up and starts coming closer. It gets ready to lunge. Nope, 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 nope. I made it just in time to my place. The house was circled by coyotes for the next few days.
Not scary, but I have something similar that belongs on /x/. I lived in a fairly isolated house most of my youth, with a big field stretching out before a small wooded area beyond my backyard, on the outskirts of town. I had an Egyptian Mao cat for several years that I loved dearly. She always cuddled up to me at night and was very sweet. She often played with our dog in the backyard, and sometimes I swear she would purposefully wake me when I would have bad dreams. She got me through many tough times growing up, and it wasn't easy to leave her when heading off to college. I still visited frequently and brought her little mouse toys and such on breaks. One winter break, I came home to bad news. We didn't want to tell you before coming home, so you wouldn't drive upset. But the cat has gone missing. Apparently several cats in the area have too. They think it's a coyote doing it. I didn't really react at the time, but I was unbelievably upset and angry. Not too many nights later, I was awakened by a mocking howl outside. I started to sit in the back porch each night for hours with my dad's rifle and with our dog. One night, the dog tensed up suddenly. Soon I could hear something near the back fence. I flicked on the very bright yard lights, and sure enough, it was a coyote. Immediately, I shouldered the gun and fired at it. It made a kind of pathetic sound and started to run off. I chased after it in a haze of primal hatred, vaulting over the fence. I didn't want to kill it for the typical human reasons, not for food or for fur, or for bothering my herd, or being a nuisance or threat to me. I wanted to kill it because I hated it, because it took my friend away. I had definitely hit it with the first shot, and it didn't get that far. I found it curled up and already dead near some huge rocks in the field. It was a particularly warm and muggy Texas night, and I, drenched, collapsed to the ground and suddenly started to cry. My sadness turned to a flash of anger, and I started to beat the shit out of the thing's corpse with the butt of the rifle and yell. I would have definitely seemed crazy had anyone been out there to see it. Now somewhat muddy and screaming and jamming life's melee button on a dead animal. Suddenly, I felt impelled to look to my right, and there on the ground, just 2 or 3 feet away, I saw a small mouse toy. I picked it up and found it was the kind that makes the little chirping sound when you shake or throw it. Despite being on the damp ground in the middle of the field, it looked brand new and was brightly colored. Strange that I missed it before. Holding it, I felt very calm, and the air now seemed pleasantly cool. I took back one of the smaller stones from that spot, along with the toy. I buried the toy in the backyard with the stone as a marker, with her name on it. Sometimes when I visit my parents and sleep in my old room, as I'm just about to fall asleep, I can hear a faint purring sound. I've never really had any paranormal encounters unless this counts. I've always felt that she gave that to me to help put me at ease, just as she would when I'd have nightmares. I strongly felt back in that moment, finding it, that she didn't want me to be angry and out uselessly seeking vengeance. It's hard to word correctly, but it was like a direct emotional conveyance or something. a feeling I don't think I would have reached alone.
I suppose I will share one of my stories too. Deutsch friend here, excuse my shitty English. I just moved to America recently. I moved to a new apartment in a country area some time ago. I'd been in it for some days, maybe a week. I was lying in bed late at night, listening to the trees blow in the wind. It was relaxing and chill. I was drifting off to sleep. I was sleeping and had a dream of a tall, dark figure standing in my hallway staring at me. Suddenly, I do not know how to explain it, sort of like a gunshot sound coming from the kitchen. I jolted awake and looked towards my door. A break-in, maybe? I grabbed my knife and snuck out of my bedroom door slowly. I looked through the kitchen and living room. Empty. I turned back to go to my bed. I saw a tall, dark shadow just out of sight move into the bedroom. I heard what I guess was a gasp, a quick, heavy breath of sorts. I jolted awake again. It seemed to be a dream within a dream. I noticed the knife sitting on my table next to my bed, not in the place where I always keep it. This happens regularly, but with my new job, I sleep during the day and leave a little after night, so I don't experience it anymore.
I've got a bit of a short story. I'm still not sure what to make of it. Be living in a small town in the Wisconsin Fox Valley. Nothing to do in the valley besides get drunk. Me and a friend, let's call him Marcus, decide to walk around in the middle of the night. Nothing interesting goes on while we walk around, just chatting about things like guns and D&D. We reach the outskirts of town in no time. We start heading down a county road that loops back to another part of town. The road leads past some suburbs, some businesses, and a quarry. As we walk, I get the feeling something is off. Cars pass us every now and then, but they're far and few between. I can't shake the feeling, and our conversation dies off. As we reach the stretch of road in front of the quarry, it becomes aware to us that there are no streetlights on our side. It wouldn't be so bad if it wasn't for the fact that the quarry was also on our side. The quarry itself is surrounded by chain link fence about 7 feet high and hasn't seen much use in the past years. Regardless of the circumstance, we kept walking forward in silence. After maybe 30 seconds of walking past the fence, something strange happens. A blood-curdling sound comes from the quarry, a scream somewhere between a rabbit and a woman. Whatever made the sound must have been either dying or having its intestines ripped out. Looking over at Marcus, it's like he didn't hear it as he kept walking. I motion for him to stop and listen, and he does. Not even 5 seconds after I heard the sound. Another scream, same volume but slightly different in pitch. We both share a look of, "You heard that too, right?" He asks me if we're going to turn around and do something about it. Fuck that. We both turn and keep walking along the road. It took us about 5 minutes to get past the quarry. The entire time was punctuated by the scream every few seconds. After we get out of earshot of the quarry, the mood begins to lighten up. We joke about making a Call of Cthulhu campaign about it. The rest of the night is uneventful, although I've yet to walk past the quarry at night since. I can't help but wonder what the hell was making that noise. It was higher in pitch than an average woman, but still human-like. The sound was truly like someone was getting murdered, but repeatedly. If it was dying, why did it last for over 5 minutes? If it wasn't dying, why was it screaming over and over again? I don't think it was a recording either, because each scream was different from the last. It had slight changes in pitch, volume, and length each time.
Fuck it.
This seems like the right place to tell my story. Be me, 8 or 9 years of age, living in New Zealand. Me, my dad, and my brothers went to a water park and stayed in a little ass motel. We stayed about one night, and we were checking out. I noticed a door with a window that led to behind the motel. I heard rubbish bins being tossed around or some shit. Then when the noises stopped, I saw the silhouette of a large bear-looking thing walking off, making a wet, growling noise. I gave no shits, considering I was only 8, and forgot about it. Fast forward 2 years later. I was staying with my aunt in Rotorua. I had to sleep in the guest room. As I laid on the bed, I started to feel very heavy and overwhelmed. I saw the same bear-looking shape walking past my room from 2 years ago. I started to feel very panicky. Everything in the room started to look and feel larger. All over my body, I felt like tiny pin-sized 100-kilo weights were pushing me down into my bed. Then I noticed that the bear was gone. The room no longer seemed so overwhelming. I felt the invisible weight dissipate. After a few minutes, I went to sleep. In the morning, as I ate Wheat Bix with honey, I asked my auntie if she had seen any bears or anything around her house. She said, "No, shut up, eat your breakfast." Also, there aren't really any bears in New Zealand. I live in the US now, and nothing like this has happened since. Most likely just a dumbass kid's imagination. I have seen threads on /x/ about shadow people and dreaming as you're waking. That might be a good explanation. It sounds like shitty creepypasta now that I've typed it down.
I don't remember exactly, but it started when I was 4 or 5 years old. My house has a long corridor. It has 3 rooms on the left and another where it ends. I dreamed 1,000 times about a shadow coming out of my father's room, the 3rd one, and coming after me. I also dreamed about me coming out of the room door and some hands not letting me out. I don't know how it started, if the first thing was the dreams or fear in real life, but every day, even with sun and light in the house, I had to run down the corridor. My room was the last on the corridor at that time. Later, I changed rooms because one brother left the house, and I got the first room on the corridor. Still, I had to run sometimes to go in or get out. Later, I changed again and returned to my room. I stopped doing it at 12 years old or so, but I kept doing it sometimes. Now I'm 21 years old, and when it's dark, I have to run down it sometimes. One night, I almost had a heart attack. I was quiet and walking, but I felt it on my back and nope, nope, nope. I started running. I almost cried. This was the only time I felt the shadow so close to me, but there were many other times when I looked back and felt like I was seeing the shadow coming out of the 3rd room. Sure, it's just that I'm easy to scare, but it's still rare. It's not fear of the dark. That ever happened with the lights on. If I'm in my room, I can stay in the dark perfectly. Not like other people with fear of the dark that can't do that. I don't know where this fear came from, but I'm sure it's only a fear. Me again. My mother was the one who introduced me to ghost stories, though she wasn't the reason for my dreams, because they started when I was too little to have my mom talking to me about this shit. This is a story from her birthplace, a little Spanish town on the top of a mountain. In her house, she and her brothers heard footsteps on the top floor. If they went up to see what was happening, they heard the footsteps on the lower floor. They never saw anything. This doesn't happen anymore, so probably they were just scared as kids. One of her brothers one night woke up due to a child's hands touching his feet. Later, I'll continue with the real shit. One of her neighbors said to her and others that when she returned to her house, some things were disorganized and the hen house was open and the chickens were spread over the house. So they thought that was the chickens' fault. But this kept happening. This neighbor one day, just after getting out and closing the door, heard a noise. When she opened it again, she saw things disorganized. No chickens. Typical poltergeist. The neighbor invited my mom, my grandmother, and other people to see it. They closed the door and right after opened it again, they even saw a dish flying like someone threw it.
Became a commando because of this. Be me. Respond to an ad on Craigslist for a warehouse job, only 5 miles from my house. Show up for the interview at 9 a.m. It's the shadiest looking office I've ever seen, red flag one. The place looked abandoned and smelled like a wet dog. The receptionist was all tatted up and unprofessional looking. There were 3 other guys for interviews. They all seemed to be on the slow side. A guy shows up and says he's Mr. Banks. He leads us into a conference room and says there is no warehouse job, red flag 2. He tells us it's a lucrative sales position. We'll make $600 a week. He asks for our SSN and driver's license, red flag 3. I give a fake SSN but give him my license. He says we need to go to the bank to withdraw money for the paid training. He tells us to get in a van without windows with his 2 managers, bouncer-looking guys. I say I'll just follow in my truck. He agrees. I consider leaving, but decide to see it through. They drive to the outskirts of town into farmland. No banks around. They turn down a long road. Trees lining the road form a canopy that blocks out sunlight. I turn on my headlights. Alarm bells go off. I slam on my brakes. The van stops. A manager gets out. I can see a holstered gun under his jacket. I hit it in reverse and get back on the main road. I check Google Maps. Nothing but dead ends in that area. I checked Craigslist. The post is deleted. I tell the cops. They say they'll look into it. I've carried my Glock 24/7 ever since.
September last year. I finally got a new working TV in my room. No more sitting at the computer watching movies. I make my way to the study to download some new movies onto a USB because I'm a laptopless pleb. While shit's copying onto the USB, I get distracted by some crap on the TV. Suddenly I start hearing something banging around or stuff being dragged around my room. No dice.jpg. I slowly walk towards my room, shaking pretty hard because I'm freaked out as all fuck. I thought someone had broken into my room somehow and was in the process of stealing my shit and then killing me, which I wasn't in the mood for. I'm still slowly walking towards my room. I can see the light shining beneath the door. Suddenly I see something walk past the door from under the gap. Nah, man, I go drag my brother out of bed and kick him into my room to check for demons or serial killers. Nothing there, nothing damaged, couldn't have been broken into. I didn't sleep in my bedroom for 2 days after because fuck that. I finally decided to go back into sleep and find nothing had been moved or damaged except my Xbox, which was on the floor. The ghost fucker tried to steal my Xbox. What an asshole.
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel as more Greentext will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.